What happens when a rude bank teller humiliates the wrong woman, only to realize she holds more power than anyone expected? Meet Vanessa Carter, a successful black businesswoman who walked into a bank for a simple transaction, but left teaching an unforgettable lesson. The teller, Emily, looked at Vanessa and saw someone she could disrespect. What she didn't see? The woman in front of her was part owner of the very bank she worked at. But how did Vanessa expose Emily's prejudice? And how did one humiliating moment turn into an instant, career-ending disaster? Stick around, because this story will leave you speechless. Before we continue, make sure to like the video and subscribe the channel so the community can grow and we can bring you more stories like this. Now, let's get into it. The line at the bank was moving at a snail's pace. Customers sighed impatiently, checking their watches, shifting from foot to foot. The air smelled of fresh coffee and polished floors, but the tension was thick. At the counter, a blonde teller with a stiff smile and narrowed eyes scanned the line with mild irritation. Her name tag read Linda, and judging by the way she interacted with customers, she had little patience for those she deemed unworthy of her time. Then a black woman stepped forward. She was elegant. Tailored navy blazer, diamond studs in her ears, and a confidence that turned heads. Her brown skin glowed under the bank's fluorescent lights. She carried herself with the ease of someone who knew her worth. But Linda? Linda only saw what she wanted to see. She barely glanced up before pasting on a tight, dismissive smile. "Are you sure you're in the right place?" she asked, voice dripping with condescension. The woman raised a brow. "Excuse me?" Linda sighed as if she had been asked to perform a monumental task. "This is the executive banking line. Regular transactions are over there." She pointed to the opposite side of the bank, where the line stretched nearly to the door. The woman's lips curled into a half-smile. "I know exactly where I am." She slid an elegant black card onto the counter. "I need to make a transfer." Linda barely glanced at the card before pushing it back. "Like I said, this line is for executive clients. If you have a basic account, I can't assist you here." A hush fell over the bank. People were watching. The black woman exhaled slowly, her patience wearing thin. "Scan the card," she said, voice steady but firm. Linda scoffed. "Ma'am, I don't want to embarrass you, but this counter is for our elite members." She gestured toward a well-dressed white man behind the woman. "Sir, I can take you next." The man hesitated, looking between the two women. He could feel the shift in the room. The black woman, however, didn't flinch. "Do you always judge clients before even checking their status?" she asked coolly. Linda rolled her eyes, finally snatching the card and swiping it through the system. Beep! Her screen blinked. Her face paled. Her fingers trembled as she scanned the screen again. This account wasn't just elite. It was flagged as a VIP owner's account. Linda's stomach twisted. This wasn't just a wealthy client. This woman had major ownership in the bank. Beads of sweat formed on her forehead. She forced a laugh, trying to recover. "Oh, I apologize for the confusion, ma'am. Of course, I can assist you right away." But the woman only leaned forward, eyes sharp. "No need." "I'd like to speak to the bank manager." Linda swallowed hard. This wasn't going to end well. Linda's breath hitched. The bank manager?" she repeated, her voice an octave higher. The black woman didn't blink. "Yes, right now." The bank had fallen into an eerie silence. Even the customers who were once impatient to get their transactions done weren't moving. All eyes were locked on the scene unfolding before them. Linda's hand trembled as she reached for the phone. She punched in a 3-digit extension, her usual smugness completely gone. Mr. Hawkins," she stammered, "could you come to the front desk? We have, an important client here." She glanced up at the black woman nervously, then back down at her screen, as if she was hoping the system had made some kind of mistake. 30 seconds later, The glass door to the manager's office swung open. A tall man in a navy suit stepped out, adjusting his tie. His name tag read, James Hawkins, Regional Branch Manager. His eyes flickered from Linda's panicked face to the woman standing at the counter, poised, unbothered, and exuding authority. Then he saw the name flashing on Linda's screen, and his face turned a sickly shade of white. "Ms. Montgomery," he breathed, hurrying forward. I didn't realize you were visiting the branch today." Linda flinched. "Montgomery?" She racked her brain, trying to place the name. Then it hit her. Montgomery Financial Group, the parent company that held a majority stake in the very bank she worked for. Her mouth went dry. Ms. Montgomery, the woman she had just humiliated, was part of the ownership group that controlled the bank. The woman, Ms. Monica Carter Montgomery, watched James Hawkins with an unreadable expression. "Neither did your staff," she said coolly, "and that seems to be a problem." James shot a glare at Linda, who visibly shrank. "Is there an issue, ma'am?" he asked cautiously. Monica Carter tapped a manicured nail against the counter. "Yes, your teller here took one look at me and assumed I didn't belong in this line. She refused to check my credentials until I insisted. Then, when she realized who I was, she tried to backpedal." James closed his eyes briefly, exhaling through his nose. He turned to Linda, his face thunderous. "Is this true?" he asked, his voice sharp. Linda's mouth flapped open and closed. I just thought." "Answer the question." His tone left no room for escape. Linda's gaze darted around the room as if searching for an exit. Customers were still watching. Employees were whispering. She swallowed. I made a mistake," she admitted finally, her voice small. Monica Carter lifted an eyebrow. "A mistake? Or a bias?" Linda had no answer. James Hawkins straightened, then turned to Monica Carter with an apologetic nod. "Miss Montgomery, please allow me to handle this immediately." Monica Carter crossed her arms. "I'd like to see that." Linda's stomach dropped. This was it. James Hawkins inhaled sharply, his nostrils flaring as he turned back to Linda. "Step into my office, now." Linda's legs wobbled as she took a step backward. "Wait, Mr. Hawkins, please." "Now." His voice was like a gavel hitting a judge's desk. The entire bank was dead silent. Customers who had been watching from the side leaned in slightly, pretending to focus on their own transactions. But no one was looking away. Linda's hands trembled as she grabbed the edge of the counter for support. She looked at Monica Carter as if silently pleading for mercy. Monica Carter didn't even blink. She had been judged unfairly. Now it was Linda's turn. James turned toward one of the other employees, a younger teller with dark brown curls pulled into a bun. "Samantha, take over Linda's station." The young woman rushed forward, sliding into the seat Linda had just been occupying. Linda, meanwhile, had no choice but to follow James into his office. As soon as the door shut, Monica Carter turned to Samantha. "I'd still like to withdraw my funds." Samantha nodded enthusiastically, her hands moving swiftly and professionally. "Absolutely, Ms. Montgomery. I'll process that right away." Within seconds, the transaction was completed, without attitude, without judgment. Monica Carter took her receipt and smiled at Samantha. "That was excellent service." The young teller beamed. "Thank you, ma'am." Monica Carter turned, clutching her designer bag, and slowly walked away from the counter. She could still see Linda's silhouette through the frosted glass of the manager's office. She wasn't the type to take pleasure in someone else's downfall. But today, Linda had earned it. 10 minutes later. The office door burst open. Linda stumbled out, her face pale, her hands shaking. James Hawkins followed closely behind, his jaw tight, his movements stiff with frustration. His voice rang through the lobby. "Linda, gather your things. You're done here." Gasps filled the room. Linda froze, her eyes wide. Wait, you're firing me? James crossed his arms. You were given multiple warnings about your treatment of customers. Today, you embarrassed this bank in front of one of its own stakeholders. I have no choice. Tears pooled in Linda's eyes. Please, Mr. Hawkins, I need this job. I can do better, I swear. Monica Carter, still standing nearby, watched the scene unmoved. Linda's pleas continued. Miss Montgomery, I'm so sorry. I didn't know who you were. Monica Carter finally spoke. And that's the problem. Linda's breath hitched. You didn't know who I was, Monica Carter said, so you treated me differently. But if I had been some wealthy white man, I bet you wouldn't have hesitated to help me. Linda looked away, shame crawling up her spine. But it was too late. She had learned the lesson too late. Linda stood in the middle of the bank lobby, frozen. Her cheeks burned with embarrassment, her breathing uneven. This can't be happening. She turned to James, hoping, praying, for another chance. Mr. Hawkins, please. I've worked here for years. I made one mistake, just one. James shook his head. This wasn't one mistake, Linda. This was a pattern. And today, it cost you everything. Monica Carter tilted her head, observing the scene like a spectator at a courtroom trial. Linda had no defense. The weight of her actions was finally crashing down on her. Her hands trembled as she reached for the name tag pinned to her blouse. Slowly, she unfastened it, her fingers hesitant. One final plea. Please, I'll do anything. James exhaled. I'm sorry, Linda. The decision is final. Silence. The other employees averted their gazes, pretending to focus on their screens. The customers in the lobby, however, weren't even trying to hide their reactions. Some whispered amongst themselves. Others simply stared. The woman who had once treated customers like they were beneath her was now the one being dismissed. Linda turned back to Monica Carter, desperation in her eyes. Miss Montgomery, please. Monica Carter's lips curled into a tight smile. You'll survive. Her voice was calm, even, measured. Linda blinked. Monica Carter turned toward James, nodding once in appreciation. I'll be in touch with the board soon. Thank you for handling this properly. James nodded back. We value our partners, Ms. Montgomery. Monica Carter smirked. I hope so. She adjusted the strap of her designer handbag and turned toward the exit. As she walked out, the heels of her Louboutins clicked against the marble floor, each step carrying the weight of justice served. Linda, still standing in shock, watched her leave. The doors swung shut behind Monica Carter, cutting off the sunlight streaming into the bank, and with it, Linda's career. 15 minutes later. Linda sat in her car, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Fired. Humiliated. Disgraced. How had it come to this? She thought she was untouchable. She had never imagined that one of the customers she'd dismissed so easily would be someone with real power. But now, she knew better, and it was too late. Meanwhile, across town, Monica Carter sat in the back of her chauffeur-driven car, sipping a glass of sparkling water as she scrolled through emails on her phone. A message from James popped up. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. We won't tolerate behavior that disrespects any of our clients, especially not one of our own. Looking forward to your visit to HQ next week. Monica Carter smiled. Some lessons were learned the hard way. 1 week later, Monica Carter sat at the head of a long, polished boardroom table, her posture effortlessly poised. The Montgomery Financial Group logo gleamed behind her on a glass panel. She glanced around at the other executives, each one waiting for her to speak. At the far end of the table, James Hawkins sat with his hands clasped, eyes alert. He had handled the Linda situation well, But Monica Carter had one final order of business. She tapped her manicured fingers against the table. "Let's discuss customer experience at our branches." A few members of the board shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They had already been briefed on what had happened. Monica Carter exhaled, then leveled them with a look. What happened at that bank should never have happened. It was more than just bad service. It was about power, bias, a failure to see value in every client. The room was silent. Monica Carter let the weight of her words settle in. Then she continued, "We need to do better. Effective immediately, I want a full audit of customer service at all branches. I also want diversity and inclusion training implemented. Non-negotiable. If you can't align with that, let me know now." She leaned back in her chair, crossing her legs. "Because I have no problem replacing people who don't fit the vision." A few executives nodded quickly. James cleared his throat. "We've already started internal reviews, Ms. Montgomery, and I assure you we're taking your concerns seriously." Monica Carter gave a slow nod. "Good." Her phone vibrated. A notification popped up. Linda Williams, social media post. "Life has a way of humbling you. Losing my job was a wake-up call. I realize now that respect should be given to everyone no matter what they look like. A painful lesson, but one I needed." Monica Carter's lips twitched into a smirk. She wasn't one to hold grudges, but she was a firm believer in accountability. She locked her phone and looked back at the board. "Let's get to work." Meanwhile, Linda sat in a small cafe, stirring her coffee absent-mindedly. A week ago, she had been sitting behind a grand desk, barking orders, dismissing people like they didn't matter. Now, she was on the other side. Her eyes drifted across the cafe. A young black woman walked in, wearing a sleek business suit, looking confident, self-assured. Linda felt a pang in her chest. That could have been her, if she had treated people with dignity. She had learned her lesson, the hard way. Final words. Monica Carter never thought much about Linda after that day. She had bigger things to focus on. But one thing was certain. Respect isn't just about who you think has money or power. It's about treating everyone like they matter. Because you never know who's really sitting across from you. Respect should never be based on appearances, because you never know who you're dealing with. Linda judged Monica Carter without knowing her true status, and in the end, she paid the price for her arrogance. This story is a reminder that treating people with kindness and fairness isn't just the right thing to do. It could also save you from a serious downfall. Power isn't always obvious, and the person you look down on today might be the one deciding your fate tomorrow. What do you think? Did Linda get what she deserved? Let us know in the comments. Like, comment, and subscribe for more unbelievable stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Turn on notifications so you never miss a video.